Hello, hello, and welcome back to Cabin Fever Crochet with me, Helene here. I thank you all for joining me, and I've missed you all, and I hope you've missed me too. I've been super busy and actually a little under the weather the last few days, but before another day went by, I wanted to bring to you this just quick and easy little tutorial of what I do with my headband / ear warmers. I'm going to give you just a little overview. I like ear warmers, but I don't like a lot of width and bulk at the back, the nape of my neck. It's a little uncomfortable for me, and also because I have curly hair, it tends to push my hair out and forward in a really weird way. So what I did was I created just a little graduation, starting out more narrow, and then I increase up into the pattern that I'm going to be doing. And this will work, I think, with just about any stitch, any size yarn that you choose. And I've done in 3 different ones, and it's kind of my progression. This is in the Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn, and I used the it's Grit Stitch 2, Roman numeral 2, and a stitch book that I have. I think it's probably called something else in other stitch books, but anyway, that's what I used here, and that's what I'm going to be using in the tutorial. And then on this one, which I made last year, I worked it up in the Alpine Stitch in this lovely Premier Muir, M-U-I-R, Woods yarn. It's beautiful gradient and ombre effect. It's very soft, and I like how it works up, but this yarn is splits. The strands are not really spun together. They're just very loosely wound, so it splits easily when working up. And then the last one I made, which is the bottom portion, the nape band that I decided works the best, is working single crochet into the back loop. It creates a really nice ribbed effect. It's nice and stretchy, very forgiving and easy for different head sizes and shapes. And I liked this so much that I carried it on and just continued with the exact same stitch all the way through. And this is a Knitology and Knit Crate yarn from last year, and they're worsted bouncy, 100% merino. Okay, so with the yarn that I'm going to be working in, Hobby Lobby, their yarn be soft and sleek, and it recommends a J hook, a 6mm, but I'm going down to the 5.5 I hook. And I think this yarn could go for either, but for this particular project, I don't want it, stiff, but I want the stitches closer together so there's no open gaps, so that my ears stay warm. And what we're going to do is start a chain, and the chain will be as long as you want it wide. As we're going to be working back and forth, and the length is going to depend on what's comfortable for you and also the type of yarn you're using, because you're going to need less chains for a chunkier, bulky yarn, of course, and more chains for number 3 or DK weight. So as we work our beginning rows, like here, I'm going to use this little baby doll, my little model here. And okay, so the back of your ears, and I would start in the middle of the nape of your neck, just as a gauge. And it doesn't have to be exact, because as you come around, if you put the 2 ends together nice and neatly, and I'm going to show you how I do mine in order to create the same type of ribbing effect, so you've got that consistency all the way around. Then it really doesn't matter if you end where your join's going to be right in the center, a little over to one side or the other. The most important thing is not to make that thinner back portion too long, because you need to leave enough room on either side of the nape to begin your increase, and then you're going to increase and then stop and go as far as you want it wide to cover your ears, and then you carry on with that portion for the body of the work all the way around and right to the back of the ears, and then you begin your decrease, and then you finish off in the width where you began to meet the other side. However many, you might just need a few rows, or you might need, you know, several inches, and then that's where you'll join the two sides together. Okay, so go ahead, make your slip knot, and in this case for me, I'm going to chain 9. Oh, and also your beginning chain, it doesn't matter if you have an odd or even number. What matters is when you get to the point where you've reached as wide as you want to have the amount of stitches in the multiples of your stitch pattern. So I suggest that you pick a stitch that maybe is in any numbers. It doesn't have to have a multiple, or just say an even number. Or grit stitch is in multiples of 2, so that's easy. Then we'll just have an even number. And then the alpine stitch is in any number of stitches, so it makes it easy. Just make sure that however wide your width is, it's divisible by that stitch number. Right, so I'm just going to go ahead and chain 9 on mine. And this is just because that's the width that I want mine. And then we're going to begin in the second chain from the hook, turn it over and working into the back bumps. You single crochet into each of the back bumps all the way to the end. Just one single crochet in each stitch across. Very basic. Chain 1 and turn, and now place a single crochet into both loops of the first stitch and then both loops of the last stitch, and you're going to do this for every row across until you get to your stitch pattern, because it just creates a good solid base on your sides and you don't wind up with big holes at the end from only working into the back loop. And also by working into the back bumps in our initial row, it gives you a full stitch to work into when we put our sides together. Okay, so in each stitch across, place one single crochet into the back loop only, in each stitch all the way across to the end. And in the last stitch, see that fly? One fly in the house. Of course it's got a 0 in on this. Okay, and then one single crochet through both loops at the end. Chain 1 and turn, and then do the same. Single crochet into both loops of the first stitch and single crochet in the back loop of each stitch across. And single crochet through both loops of the last stitch. And now for those of you who are new, sometimes the end stitches can tend to just curve down a little bit, so make sure that you crochet into each of those, and if you need to get a little stitch marker and pop it in there just to be sure you have it, that's fine. Okay, so chain 1 again and turn, and into that same stitch we just chained out of, that very first stitch, single crochet through both loops, and then place one single crochet into the back loop of each stitch across, and then 1 single crochet through both loops of the last stitch, chain 1 and turn, and then you're going to keep repeating this from, like I said, about from the middle, the nape of your neck, over maybe a couple inches. And the biggest thing is you want to leave enough room to do your increases to get wide enough to cover your ears. And it's better to start off on this first portion, maybe having this a little bit shorter, and then do your increase. After you've finished and you've come around, then you can just make up the difference to bring the two sides together on this side, so that you won't wind up having too much at the beginning and then not enough space to finish your decrease. Okay, so I shall see you in just a few minutes. So now I'm going to begin my increases. Chain 1 and turn, and place 2 single crochet through both loops of the first stitch, and again work 1 single crochet into the back loop of each stitch across. Okay, and then 1 single crochet into both loops of the last stitch, chain 1 and turn, and again work 2 single crochets into the first stitch and 1 single crochet into the back loop of each stitch across, just like we have been doing. And when you get to the end, and remember, make sure you get that last one, place 1 single crochet through both loops of the last stitch. And you are going to repeat this process until you get to the width that you want. Now I'm going to stop on an even number, because that is what the stitch that I'm doing calls for. And then you can measure, if you like, and that'll give you an idea. So if you make this pattern again, then you already have those numbers all set up for you. And I just take this and I, measure it to my ear and see if that's comfortable, if that's where I want to go, if I have enough coverage. And then once I do, then I begin my pattern. And just keep in mind, if you're doing this grit stitch, it takes a little bit before the pattern actually develops, before you can see that. But as your work grows, you will start to see the development of the texture in it. Alrighty, so I think I'm almost there. I probably will just do one more row or two, and I will see you there, and then we'll begin the pattern. Okay, now I'm going to begin the pattern. First, chain 1, which does count as a first double crochet, and then into the next stitch. Now we're going to be working through both loops, and in the second stitch here work a double crochet. Now you're going to skip the next stitch, okay, and in the next stitch work 1 single crochet and 1 double crochet all into that same stitch, skip 1 and then repeat 1 single crochet, 1 double crochet into that next stitch, skip 1, and again 1 single crochet and 1 double crochet all into that same following stitch, and you repeat that all the way across and up until your last 2 stitches. Okay, skip one, and in the next stitch place one single crochet and one double crochet all into that same stitch. Skip one, one single and one double. Skip one, one single, one double, and now I have my 2 stitches left. Going to skip one stitch and place one single crochet in the last. Okay, that's how our pattern begins. And now this is going to be a 1 row repeat. For the next row, chain 1 and turn. That counts as the first single crochet, and then you're going to double crochet in that same very first stitch. Going to skip this next stitch, which is a double crochet. You can tell because it's a little slightly bit higher, and you'll see that more as you go along. So you're going to skip that double crochet, and into the next stitch you're going to place one single and one double. That next stitch we just did, that's a single crochet. Going to skip the next stitch, that double crochet, into the next, which is a single crochet. You can see it's a little bit shorter each one. Again, single crochet and double crochet. And you're going to do that all the way across. Skip one, single crochet and double crochet into the next. Skip one, and that little single crochet can kind of get squished down in there, so make sure you're not overlooking that. Skip the next, and into the next stitch, single crochet and double crochet. That's what you repeat again across until the last 2 stitches. And remember that chain 1 counts as a stitch, and we are going to work into that. That will be the top of our single crochet turning chain. Okay, so skip one, one single crochet, one double crochet into the next, skip one, and into that last turning chain, going to place one single crochet. And that's what you will repeat back and forth, back and forth. So now you see this is the width we're going all the way across. Here's the back of the ear right there, and then you carry on with this pattern. I'll do a couple more with you if you want to use this pattern, and you go all the way to the other side, begin our decrease, and then we'll finish off however many rows to get to the circumference of our head or whomever you might be making it for, and then we will sew in our ends. So again, we're going to chain 1 and turn. That chain 1 does count as our first single crochet, so don't cinch that down tight, because as we did before, the end of each row we will be working into that. And into that very same first stitch here, you place your double crochet. You skip the next stitch, which is a double crochet. You'll always be working into the single crochets. Okay, so you skip one and into the next, place one single and one double. Skip one and into the next, one single crochet and one double crochet, all into the same stitch. Skip one, and you just repeat this across until you have 2 stitches at the end. Skip one, one single, one double. So you can see this starts working up pretty quickly. Okay, so my last set, skip one, one single, one double. I'm going to skip the double, and this single is tucked down in here. Okay, that's that chain 1. That's where you're going to place a single crochet. Now, depending on your yarn, or if you're new to crochet, you might have difficulty finding that. So when you make your chain 1 and turn at the beginning of the row, if it helps you, you can take a little stitch marker and just place that through these 2 loops. A smaller hook. See that? Okay? That little chain 1 that you just made. That's where you would place your stitch marker. And then I will complete my length, and then I'll meet you back when I begin to do the decrease. Alright, so I'm going to keep working mine, and I will see you in a little bit, and we'll finish this up. Now, to decrease, what we're going to do is just a little bit different here, because when we ended here, like on this ribbed portion, the chain 1 did not count as a stitch. And when we began the body of the work, it did count as a stitch, so that added even a little bit more width to this piece. So now we have to come around this other side and create the same pattern. So now when we chain 1, and this portion going back into the ribbed, this does not count as a stitch. Okay, turn your work. We're going to skip this first single crochet, and now we're going to single crochet into both loops of the next stitch, and that's going to create a little bit of an inward curve, just like it did down here. Okay, and then now in the next stitch, now we're going to work in the back loop only, single crochet, and each stitch across into the back loop. And when you get to the end, we're going to do a similar thing like we did at the beginning of the row. Okay, back loop only, single crochet across. We're going to ignore that chain 1 and turn that we did that counted as a stitch here. We're going to ignore that like we did here. And this, technically the second to last stitch will be our last. So this last full stitch here, we're going to single crochet into both loops. Again, chain 1 and turn, and that chain 1 does not count as a stitch through the rest of this work. So now we're going to do an actual full decrease. So insert your hook into both loops, yarn over and pull up a loop. Leave those 2 loops on your hook. Go into the next stitch through both loops, yarn over and pull up a loop. Now you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook, and that is a full decrease. And now we're going to single crochet again into the back loops only, all the way across into the last stitch. And in that last stitch you will single crochet through both loops, again to give that stability and good base. Okay, so this is not a stitch here. We're going to single crochet through both loops of that last stitch. Your decreases might look a little funny at first, a little, more exaggerated on the edges, but once you get down to your beginning number of stitches that you started with here, it's going to look like it's supposed to. So I will keep decreasing mine, and you keep decreasing yours till you get down to the number. And I'll just do this one more time. Okay, I chain 1 and I turned through both loops and pull up a loop, through both loops, pull up a loop in the next stitch, yarn over, pull through all 3, Then the back loop only, just single crochet across. And in the last stitch, single crochet through both loops. So I believe my number, I'm down to 10. I just have 2 more rows, so I shall see you in just a minute. I have come down to my 8 stitches, and once you do your decrease to your number of stitches, where then you just go back and forth until they meet around your head. Now I finished my decreases, so here I'm just going to do the same as I did at the beginning. Chained 1 and turn, single crochet in through both loops of the first stitch and the last, and then all the way across, just in the back loop only. When I get to this point, I might, at like every couple of rows, just try it on to see how that fits. So here I am at the end, the last stitch. Don't accidentally omit that, okay? And go through both loops. That's why it's helpful to just kind of keep track of your stitch count every now and then and know where you are, how many you need to be. Okay, again, so I chained 1 and I turned, single crocheted both loops. Oops, just like I did in the last row. And then single crochet in the back loop across, and in the last one through both loops, just like we did. Okay, and leave enough, to work across, because you're going to sew them together, and then you want enough to sew in your tail at the end. Just kind of eyeball it. I'd rather have a little extra than not enough. You can make a knot here just to secure that a little bit. Okay. You want to put the front sides on the inside or the wrong side facing you. Okay. So take your tail end, the one that you left for sewing in, and get a large eye blunt tip yarn needle, whatever size is going to fit your yarn well. And I go through both loops of the first stitch on both ends, bring my yarn through, and I like to secure my ends very well, because the seam, this is going to be where a stress point is. And I like to take my needle and I go through the very edge loops, both sides. Try not to split your yarn when doing that. And then I go back through first 2 stitches on both sides. Okay. We're going to work into the outside loop, and on the side that's closest to you, we're going to work on that inside loop. Okay. Outside loop, inside loop. And then go to this next stitch, and again inside loop across to the outside loop. I'm going to do this back and forth, outside loop to the inside loop, inside loop, outside loop. Make sure they're all lined up, outside, inside, okay? Inside, outside. And I'm down to my last stitch. Before I connect, I want to show you what that does. Now this is going to wind up being the inside or the wrong side. As you can see, By working it that way, it creates another rib or ridge that is very similar to all the rest, and then you get the stitch in between. So you don't get this real bulk, thick kind of stiff ridge along the back on the inside of your neck. That often happens when doing either a slip stitch with your hook or a single crochet across. And on this portion, which is going to be the outside of your work when you turn it, you see, we have exactly the same pattern of our rib stitch going all the way across. Like I said, it creates an almost invisible seam. So on my last stitch now, I'm going to go through both loops on both sides, just like I did at the beginning. I want to really anchor those. I'm going to just kind of poke my hook somewhere through those little end knots. And I don't want to poke it through the beginning slip stitch knot because I don't want to loosen that in any way. Alright, then I'm just going to come back just to secure it. And I don't want it to be visible, but I like to really secure my work. Okay. Got it. Okay. And then just, sew in your ends, just like you normally would. They're nice and buried neatly. You don't see them on the other side. And I'll go ahead and, finish that off camera. Turn that right side out. If you find like where your join is here that you have a little bit of a gap once you connect, it's easy to clean up the edges. If you need to fill in that gap a little, you just bring your yarn over. You have to bury it anyway, right? So I'll just poke it in there on the other side, connect the ends here. And here where we have that chain one, it creates that little bump. So if you want, you can just go back up the other side here. So I started to sew in my ends, oops, and just do the same thing, and you can just add another like kind of fake stitch in there if you want to get that technical. That is my little modified version of a headband ear warmer for those of you who would like a little less bulk on the base of your neck but still have that warmth. So I think that looks pretty good, pretty clean, neat, the same all the way across. I don't think anyone would be able to know where I stopped and where I started and where that seam is on both sides. Other than the color change, that's kind of like the only giveaway. But if you're working in a solid color, it's going to blend real well, or even a variegated rather than a self-striping. So I'm going to see a little bit later if I have enough yarn left to do a little flower. Okay, we'll have fun with this. Let me know what you think, would you please? I love your comments. I like your input. Hear from you. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you would, please give me a thumbs up. Like, subscribe, share, help my channel grow, as I'd love to be able to spend more time together and bring you more tutorials. I thought about it a little more, the color didn't come out really even like where the split where one ended and the other, it's more offset. To make it a little bit more balanced and symmetrical, this might be a good spot to put a flower, something. I might give that a try. If I have enough yarn and if that works out, I will insert a picture so you can see the completed piece. This, have fun making it and wearing it and even gifting it. I'd love to hear from you if you made it, how it turned out, who you made it for, if you tried different sizes, what kind of yarn you used, and if you did anything a little bit different, or if you used another stitch like I did, or just carried it on with the rib stitch, or maybe tried the alpine stitch. Okay, well, take care, and I will see you soon. Okay, till next time, bye.